Hi, it's Nicole, and today I'm going to be reviewing Feminism for the 99% by Cinzia, Arruzza, Tithi, Bhattacharya, and Nancy Fraser. This book is published by Verso books, and this video is part of the indie press project hosted by Stephanie over at Time to Read. Two things that stand out just in the title alone are the fact that this is feminism for the 99% and not feminism for the 52% or whatever the percentage is of women or female presenting people that exist in the world. The idea is that it is for the majority, the vast majority of people, this whole ideology, I guess. That figure in the title is also clearly referencing the 1% of people who are in charge of everything in the world and own everything in the world. So this title is alluding to the fact that this ideology is not just women, but also men, male-presenting, non-binary people, etc., etc., and it's for the majority of people who are not advantaged in the world, who are not super privileged, and who are not part of a very, very, very tiny elite. The second major thing that stands out for me in the title is that it is a manifesto. This is not really an in-depth discussion of things. At least for me, a manifesto is something that's essentially a snappy collection of values that is supposed to guide a certain group or movement or ideology or whatever. Considering that fact, I was a little bit more lenient on it than something like Feminism Is for Everybody by Bell Hooks, which didn't have references or any sources or anything, and this also didn't have references or any sources, but because it is a manifesto, I don't really expect that to be in there, and so I guess I kind of gave it a pass for that. Now, this whole manifesto, all of the values and everything are very, very, very closely aligned to what I already believe. I would say it is perhaps 99% what I already think. It is intersectional, it is international, it is inclusive, it is anti-capitalist. These are all things that are very important to me, and they're all things that I value quite highly. So this, I guess, was always going to be a book that I was going to be really into. One thing I would say though is it not having any sources or anything like that, it is not the kind of book that is supposed to be convincing you over to its side necessarily. I feel like it's more for people who are already in that wheelhouse that want essentially a book that is a collected values in a way to reference, to be a reminder. It has passages that do make allusions to things that have happened, to events and people, but because those things aren't always very explicitly said, sometimes it might make a reference to something that I am aware of, but it's not directly saying it, and so I think that does open it up for people to possibly say that some of the claims here are unsubstantiated. I feel like since it's just a manifesto and therefore just the beginnings of guidelines, I guess, for an ideology, the onus then becomes to me on the reader to read further into it, into the ideology and stuff like that. I mean, other people might decide to judge it differently because of that, but for me, again, I gave it a pass because I think manifestos are meant to be snappy. I don't think that it is common for them to have sources and references and stuff like that. I could be wrong, I don't know. But I would also say that even though I really love this book and I would definitely recommend it to people, it's also it also didn't present anything new necessarily to me. There was nothing in here that I can recall that made me think, oh gosh, that is a new way to look at things. Everything in here I've already thought about, I already feel, so it feels more like a bunch of reminders of my values in a way that is just neatly collected and that I can maybe point someone to say, you want to know a little bit more about me and my type of feminism? Check out this book. It's more like that. What I also liked about it is the fact that it makes the distinction of what kind of feminism it is. It talks about marketplace, corporate, capitalist feminism, which it names liberal feminism, and it talks about how that is just not radical enough, it's not good enough, and it's just not feminism, and it explains why. I feel like this would be a really great next step for people who have read Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Dear Ijeawele, which was a feminist manifesto in 15 steps or something like that. That I felt like was a really great intro to feminism primer for people. This, I feel like, is going a little bit further. It is a little bit more radical than that. Well, it's maybe a lot more radical than that, but I think it's also really plainly stating its case and laying out things very clearly. And I feel like this is a good next step for people to go if they want to get deeper into feminism. But after that, I picked up How to Be an Anti-Capitalist in the 21st Century by Erik, Olin, Wright. And that, I am not finished yet. I'm about 60% of the way through it, and I'm really enjoying it. I'd like to do a proper review of it at some point, but I really value the way that he was breaking things down in the book and what he had planned to do with this book. And it was supposed to be twinned with another book that would be more academic, and this would be more accessible for the general public. This one was essentially prioritized when he found out that he had a severe form of cancer, and I like that he made that decision, because this one is more accessible than what I imagine he would be getting into with a much more academically rigorous text. And I feel like we need more accessible content on this topic. So unfortunately, I think he did die before he was able to make that second text. I need to relook into that and see if that is true, but that's what I think is the case, and that is really a shame, because he's clearly, I think he's very good at explaining his points. I think he's very good at breaking things down clearly without being condescending to the audience, and I feel like it would have been really good to see him get further into a lot of these topics in an academic way, especially since just as I'm reading this text, you can tell that there's more stuff to come out of this topic. And even as he's clarifying what he means by each of the terms, such as capitalism, which we kind of take for granted and assume we already know what that means, he makes the point to say, this is what I mean when I'm talking about capitalism, because, you know, there are other forms that we could be talking about. There are other things that people assume goes along with that doesn't necessarily. He makes the point that the market is not what necessarily defines a system being capitalist, and I think that's very important, because I think there is a tendency to confuse the existence of a market with the system of capitalism, and that's not always the case. You can have markets in a socialist system. 60% of the way in, I would recommend the book. I already have recommended it to a few people, and I think at the moment of filming this video, at least, it's free from Verso. That's one thing that is also really great about Verso, the fact that they give away so many books for free so regularly, and they very, very often have sales on of all of their work. I think that is in line with them trying to make all of this content super accessible. I mean, what's not to love? They are definitely one of my favorite publishers, and I really hope you do check out some of the content that they make. And because Verso is one of my favorite publishers, I really do want to talk about a few of the other books that I was thinking about picking up, or ones that are actually on my e-reader right now, or ones that I've got my eye on and will probably buy and read very soon, or, well, relatively soon, knowing me. But yeah, I thought that would be cool, and instead of me just chatting at the screen for a bit, I think I'm going to put in just some footage from a walk we did recently in the woods, because I feel like that's better than just looking at my face and my unwashed hair for I don't know how many more minutes. For Futures by Peter Frase is one that I saw ages ago, I think. This kind of outlines different ways that we could go in from this point forward, and what that might look like. It's kind of an insight into where different ideologies or actions could be leading us to, and seeing which of those things we really want to be heading towards. Obviously, with everything that's been going on, the end of policing is something that has popped up a lot. I feel like, particularly in the US, defunding the police is something that I can get behind. I think it's a bit more complicated in other countries where overfunding of the police isn't necessarily the issue. There are other things going on, but whether or not police in general is something that's needed in a society, is a novel concept as well. Well, maybe not novel to more radical thinkers, but that kind of thing came up when I was reading Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis. That book made me think about things in new ways, and I found it very worthwhile, and it presented me with a lot of new information, but also new ways of seeing things, and I feel like this book will probably also do some of that for me too. The Conservation Revolution by Bram, Büscher and Robert Fletcher is another one that I really want to pick up because it just seems like it's about topics that interest me, like nature and revolution. I literally have no other reasons for wanting to pick this up. And the last book that I'm going to mention is Revolting, Prostitutes by Juno Mack and Molly Smith. This one has a fantastic cover by an illustrator that I really like. I don't know what to think basically when it comes to the idea of prostitution. I question whether that industry would exist if we all had universal basic income and this society were not a capitalist one. There's a lot that gets into this for me, but since we're not in this theoretical society, we can only address the phenomenon in our own current society. So considering that, I feel like it's really important for us to be protecting the people who are working in this kind of world. I imagine that this book will probably shed a light on some of those issues. I wish that I could have done these books and this video justice by having a more robust video that felt more, I don't know, visually engaging and more informative somehow or something like that, because again, this is one of my favorite publishers, and I am also really excited about September's month, which is going to be Haymarket. I have a few books from them already, so yeah, I'm really excited about them as well. Very similar content to Verso, but hopefully I get my stuff together early enough that I can put a lot better content together video-wise to really present that publisher in a way that I think is more fitting. So that's all from me for now, and I will see you again next time. Bye.